let's do the news. Let's do the news. Where do we want to start? Oh, let's start with the questions. So let's go to patron appreciation. These are my contributors, and these are the questions that were asked of me. And some of these are falling in line with topics that I wanted to do anyway, so these are really interesting. Chris G. Hey Jamal, could you discuss this video? That would be great. Also, do you think there's any chance Gabbard won't be allowed on the next set of debates, even though she's well over the 130,000 donor threshold? Now, the video that he's asking me to discuss is an NBC video that the host is utterly disgusting. Like, Tulsi Gabbard kind of brings up this point, like, look, every time I come on MSNBC, the only thing you guys want to talk about is Syria and Bashar al-Assad. Now, I always find this astonishing to me because George Bush was responsible for the deaths of 1 million people. And regardless of how many deaths Bashar al-Assad was responsible for, I guarantee you it wasn't 1 million people. Not to mention, they're always a little, like, they always give this stuff a pass. Their leader is a bloodthirsty monster. But our George Bush was, he was just doing politics. He was doing what he had to do. It's amazing to me that the consequences of what takes place from the office of the presidency doesn't necessarily mar the president in the eyes of journalists. So with a straight face, they can look at Tulsi Gabbard and say, how dare you go meet with that monster? Now, forget the fact that Tony Blair met with him. Nobody had an issue with that. Forget the fact that there were other political leaders. I'm not mistaken, Nancy Pelosi. Nobody had an issue with that. But with Tulsi Gabbard, it's an issue. Talk about double goddamn standard. And, beyond that particular point, Tulsi made this really great point, like, look, I'm not apologizing. I was in this military. I'm not apologizing. Now, to some degree, this was a political feint in order to rip away the narrative, or rip away. Essentially, they're having a low-level argument where Tulsi Gabbard is being calm and hitting back at what is being taken as unfairness. And she's able to wrestle momentum from the viewer or from the interviewer by bringing in her military background, saying, I'm not apologizing, in which case the person, well, look, I'm going to try to say you're going to apologize. Tulsi Gabbard is right in this. There's nothing wrong with meeting with Bashar al-Assad, especially if the goal of this is non-intervention in regards to these wars. And this notion, for fuck's sake, Donald Trump in the United States and even Obama was absolutely obsequious to Saudi Arabia. A bloodthirsty, murderous regime. No issue. But Tulsi, there's always an issue. What I want to talk about, though, is the debate stage. Tulsi put out this video, and I want to talk about this after we watch. Come on, Tulsi. Come on.
Just got off the plane, landed here in Las Vegas, where we have a labor forum tomorrow, as well as a town hall. So if you're in the area, come and check us out. But we got off the plane to some pretty exciting news. Thanks to all of your support, we have blown far past the 130,000 donor requirement to qualify for the next DNC Democratic debates. I just want to say thank you. Now we're in a place where we're pushing to pass 150,000 donors by this weekend so we can continue to build this momentum. But
just so we're clear, I don't want to pat myself on the back on this, but I got to be honest, my political acumen in regards to the way I look at this stuff tends to be on point. It's not perfect. I don't think anything is perfect. But from the standpoint of any of those talking heads on mainstream media, I find that I am just better. I made the point that on the debate stage, optics matter. Kamala Harris goes after Joe Biden, and Kamala Harris, nobody knows her. Nobody knows her from a hole in the wall. And yet, when the polling came out immediately after those debates, what did it say? When you look at the minutia of it, A, she jumped to third place over Elizabeth Warren. And then B, they said, she looks presidential. The only thing they had to go by was her performance in the debates taking a chunk out of Joe Biden. It matters. How you perform in the debates matter. And for better or worse, taking a chunk out of somebody, especially if it's, especially if it works, to some degree lowers them and elevates you. It is what it is. You don't have to like it. You think, we should be able to have these policy discussions, fair enough. But the intellect is not the thing that changes people's minds, by the way. It's your emotional state. Your thought process is usually filtered through your emotion. Your intellect is the thing that tries to explain the emotion and tries to justify the emotion. When they put people in MRIs, they call it the liar. This aspect of the intellect that tries to explain what the feeling is. They can see the feeling, in the brain, and then they can see the intellect coming behind it trying to explain why it takes place. The same thing takes place in politics. My point is, engaging the feeling process tends to hit harder than the intellect sometimes. And the debates are not just these kind of, polemic, the honorable gentlemen having these conversations. No, optics matter. Here's the catch. Chris wants to know whether or not Tulsi is going to be kept off the debate stage. It's possible. Tulsi Gabbard getting 130,000 is not the end-all, be-all. It's more to it than just 130,000. If you remember, the rules doubled. So it's 130,000, but it's also 2% in the polls. Now, there are 7 candidates that's qualified. 8 candidates have qualified for their third debates. Tulsi Gabbard, at this point, is not one of them. It is true she had the 130,000 threshold, but the 130,000 threshold is not enough in and of itself. There's also polling. The polling has to hit 2% in the polls, and you have to hit it for 4 polls. Tulsi Gabbard only has 1. I'll tell you the people who at this point have so far qualified. So candidates will need to have 130,000 unique donors and register at least 2% in 4 polls. They have until August 28th to reach those benchmarks, so she has time. The criteria could easily have the field the first 2 sets of debates in 20. Oh, okay, we don't need that part. All right, so right here, Joe Biden, Cory Booker, Pete Buttigieg, Kamala Harris, Amy Klobuchar, Beto O'Rourke, Bernie fucking Sanders, and Elizabeth Warren. Now, Juliana Castro, Andrew Yang, and Tulsi Gabbard have hit the 130,000 benchmark, but not the 2% in the polls. Tulsi Gabbard is 1 poll, but she has until August 28th to make it work. So, is it possible that she's kept off the debate stage? Yes, despite getting the 130,000 donors. It is possible. My wife was like, do I need to donate? I said, well, it goes beyond the donations at this point. She got her donations. Her performance at that debate, I guarantee you, was one of the things that propelled her to hit this. She said when she touched down, she was like, we blew past 130,000. Yeah, that's because you did awesome in that debate. And the public responded. So, good job, Tulsi. Hopefully, Delaney will not be allowed on the stage. Donald Smead, keep bringing the good analysis. Oh, thank you. Aisha Hollingsworth Thomas, do the news. Kick some ass. I'm trying. So yeah. So, shout out to Tulsi. And what I'm hoping is the money that she's getting in this, meaning her doing amazing, putting a knife in Kamala Harris. And just in case you guys don't know what I'm talking about, because it just dawned on me that somebody may be living under a rock and don't know what I'm talking about in this particular video. Tulsi Gabbard went balls out, putting an outright knife in Kamala Harris. She was like a trained missile. It was, do you remember in, what is that movie? With Tom Cruise, and they keep repeating the day over and over and over again. It's an alien attack on the planet. And there's a scene in it where Tom Cruise have relived the life so many times that he just knows where things are going to fall. One of the women that were there had that ability also. And she was a war machine. Because again, she had lived so many lives, she knew where all of the stuff was going to go. And it's like she's on the battlefield. Just fucking awesome. That's what Tulsi Gabbard was going after Kamala Harris. Just in all movies, when the guy cuts the person in half, they turn their back just before the person falls, just to let you know that they were infinitely confident that the person was going to fall. She went after her like a bomb, like a trained missile, and Kamala Harris was entirely unprepared and in no way could answer the attacks that Tulsi Gabbard made on her. Now, interestingly to note, Kamala Harris' response to this was to not engage her on the debate stage, but instead to go behind her and call her a Putin puppet. Now, let me show you. I shit you not. Wait a minute, let me find it. She goes behind her and says she's a Putin puppet. She doesn't have anything to oppose, and blah, blah, blah. Fact of the matter is, you didn't answer anything.
She blocked evidence.
Wait a minute. I want to show this because this was awesome.
To the broken criminal justice.
Because I'm qualified. All right. All right. So right here. This, right here.
Racist. What's your response?
I want to bring the conversation back to the broken criminal justice system that is
And just to be clear, my point here is this is what put her over the 150,000 or the 130,000. This, what might get her onto the next debate stage.
Proportionately negatively impacting black and brown people all across this country today. Now, Senator Harris says she's proud of her record as a prosecutor and that she'll be a prosecutor president, but I'm deeply concerned about this record. There are too many examples to cite, but she put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana. She blocked evidence. She blocked evidence that would have freed an innocent man from death row until the courts forced her to do so. She kept people in prison.
Stop for a moment. Stop for a moment. That's disqualifying. At the least it should be. Because that is ghastly. You had evidence that would have freed a man that was languishing in prison, in death row, and you knew the evidence would have exonerated him. And it took a judge to force you to have some level of integrity and some level of ethics. That should be disqualifying. It's not so much that I believe that all of these candidates are just ethical people per se. It's more so when the unethical behavior is already displayed based on the things that you've done and something so ghastly. I can think of very few things that are more ghastly than an innocent man being in prison. And then you up that, another factor, by them being on death row. You have to answer that. Like, if nothing else, if everything else you just ignore, she just fuck happened. I think she just hit me. You gotta answer one of those. One of those rabbit hits. You gotta answer one of those. Let's hear what Kamala Harris says. Kamala Harris, let's hear it.
Beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor for the state of California, and she fought to keep cash bail systems.
The audience groaned. The audience groaned. Kamala Harris looks into the camera, aggravated, and says, I am proud of my career as a prosecutor. Now, the question becomes, and I really wish Tulsi Gabbard would have said in the very next statement, I have no idea why you would be proud of these things that I've just enumerated to this audience. And by the way, Tulsi Gabbard didn't even get the opportunity to bring up the fact of her laughing and giggling like it's the funniest thing on the planet that she was using her prosecutorial power to threaten a homeless woman with jail if she can't keep her kids in school. Now think about this for the moment. This woman is homeless. I think on order of concerns, that's her issue. That's her issue. And let alone giggling about it. I don't get this giggling stuff. I would wager to you that that's what got her over the hump. And if anything, that what might get her onto that next debate stage. Kamala Harris comes out, calls her a Putin puppet, And mainstream media starts running with this notion that Tulsi Gabbard is some kind of Putin puppet and starts smearing her. Now, in lefty circles, they loved it. Even people who hated Tulsi Gabbard, meaning even people like Sam Cedar and the Young Turks, they're like, we still don't like you, but she did God's work. She did God's work. Now, there's some people on this channel who breathlessly tell me that Tulsi Gabbard shouldn't be on the debate stage. That Tulsi Gabbard should drop out. That Tulsi Gabbard has no chance. That Tulsi Gabbard blah, 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 blah. And I staunchly, stoically, continuously say that it's not about whether or not Tulsi Gabbard can win. It's about having as many lefties on that debate stage as possible. And again, my political acumen on this was right. When Sanders and Warren were on that debate stage together, they were in a foxhole fighting off moderate corporate Democrats. If Sanders were there by himself, the contours of that debate would have looked different. I'm saying her being in this race is to the better of lefties. And if nothing else, her being a trained bomb on Kamala Harris demonstrates that. It demonstrates it. Shout out to Tulsi. But unfortunately, right now, up to this point, she is not qualified for the debates. She's almost there. She has 3 more polls where she has it at 2%. And I would put to you that if her polling has surged to that extent, then it's possible she may do it. And while we're talking about the election stuff, I want to talk about Sanders. So